Food security in Africa could be dire and threatening. With worsening climate changes and recurring pandemics, extreme poverty and hunger is always forecasted for sub-Saharan Africa. The main threat to food security stems from low farm yields and unstable food supply. These quite often lead to price increases and economic uncertainties. However, compared to the manufacturing and service sectors, agricultural development is still considered the most effective strategy for poverty alleviation. This is the current strategy adopted by Nigeria for a sustainable economic development. The strategy focuses on enhancing agricultural value chains and providing social and physical infrastructures, especially in rural areas. This holistic approach of building infrastructures in addition to productive food systems is also the ideology of a project jointly sponsored by the African Development Bank and the federal government of Nigeria, the Agricultural Transformation Agenda Support Program. Still in the first phase, the Agricultural Transformation Agenda Support Program targets 4 crop zones for its integrated development. The Adani-Omor zone, made up of Anambra and Enugu states, the Bida-Badeggi zone, made up of Niger state, the Kano-Jigawa zone, made up of Kano and Jigawa states, and the Kebbi Sokoto zone, respectively.
The aims of the agricultural transformation agenda is to address the food security and food nutrition in the project areas and the country at large, and also to reduce poverty in the project communities, and also to create wealth for the communities. There is a criteria for selection and participation. There is this poverty index of the communities. The more poverty there is in that community, they are eligible. And then the state government and the local government have to show interest, and then there has to be the need in that community. So these are the basis of selection.
The cultivation and processing of crops is the most cardinal aspect of the project. Poor yields per hectare remain a prominent drawback in Nigerian agriculture. Nigeria is the leading producer of cassava, a vital supplier of food energy in tropical Africa. But the crop is produced by small stakeholders and is characterized by low yield per hectare if compared to other cassava farms across the world. ATAPS facilitators selected new varieties of cassava for extension to farmers, and new techniques were shown to them on how to increase cassava yields on their farms. In Chadozika area in Niger State, for the first time, farmers learned new techniques in land clearing, ridging, stem cutting, and the application of chemicals after planting.
After the land clearing, we showed them how to do the ridges, because formerly they do their planting of stems on the bare ground. We introduce about 3 different type of variety to this community. We inform them the type of chemicals to use. The production of the cassava tubers was very encouraging compared to what they are doing before. In 1 hectare, they hardly produce 2 to 3 pickups in their previous production. Well, the coming of ATASP-1, in 1 hectare, they will get not less than 10 to 12 pickups. 1 pickup is around 100,000 now presently in this community.
At the Argungu-Dankwali rice production area, the project met an existing unified group of rice producers who use pipes to draw water from Argungu Lake for irrigation. Here too, ATAPS improved their agronomic skills in rice planting.
The
zonal facilitator showed the farmers the importance of transplanting rice in rows and maintaining the correct spacing to ensure all the rice plants survive. He also reminded them of the importance of applying compound fertilizer while they are transplanting rice.
Da zarar tana da abinci wanga sayun nata za ta aje su a cikin ƙasa. Gaskiya waɗannan mutuwa suke yi dan ba ta da abinci za su mutu ne, amma matsuwar tana da abinci sanda ka kai ta cikin ƙasa tana da abinci za ta tsayu.
ATASP-1 has actually engaged these farmers from 2016 to date. We conducted several technologies, and about 12 technologies were selected, which has been diffused in this particular cluster, and virtually farmers are now adopting all the 12 technologies. Some of the farmers were trained on seed system production in Badeggi, NCRI Badeggi, and in Kebbi, and this cluster is currently self-sufficient in seed.
The technology produced by ATASP-1 increased their yield per hectare. For sorghum, baseline studies it is 1.9 and it is now 2.07. Baseline survey for rice 1 ton per hectare and it is now 6.3. Similarly, some of the farmers were now being linked to financial institutions and they are having access to credit and other support. In addition, ATAS provide rural commodity markets, schools, clinics, potable water, BIP toilets, access roads, and irrigation scheme, which improves the living standard of farmers.
The dissemination of good agronomic practices and improved varieties of crops resulted into higher yields per hectare in targeted areas. That means visible prosperity for many lead farmers in the various production zones. Among them is Malam Suleiman Kolo, the chief of Passoa community in Niger State.
Bana atasi jan ganci mi tala kwa sun da kafana kanga bida bana meleganci na wala atas ga mi no atas na bida na foga na iti na laberi ta kwa sun na wala patwa etina.
We're able to link up with Indorama for fertilizer. We're able to link up with the prime seeds. For seeds, we're able to link up with an industry like Hurricane to take our commodities like cassava and Kogi. We're able to link up with even a financial institution so that they can get finances to aid their farming system. So many industries, institutions we are linked up with, so that we can get to the promised land.
Michael Ayogu became a successful sorghum farmer who bought a tractor and is now building a new house in Neke, Enugu State. He had received the sorghum treasure as a trophy for being a champion of a sorghum farmers association. Although sorghum is not a dominant crop in Adani-Omor, Mr. Anyogu believes it is a viable crop, especially after ATAPS linked him with an off-taker.
So that immediately we finish the product, the off-taker will have to buy it. So we have no problem in selling the product.
Sorghum value chain, we are just starting. However, the interest was recorded when we recorded a high yield in the zone here, even though everybody saw here as the rainforest zone. But through research adaptation, we were able to identify those ones that are tolerant in this region.
While vital linkages are established for beneficiary farmers, training remains a continuous process to ensure the addition of value to every stage of production. Post-harvest processing remains another challenge to farming in Nigeria. Good farm produce are either wasted in poor storage or devalued in processing. Various step-down trainings were organized by ATAPS to ensure farmers imbibe suitable practices and adopt relevant technologies in handling their farm yields and residues. Anyamelum community is one of the biggest rice paddy producers in Anambra State. After the introduction of a milling technology, a step-down training was organized for rice farmers to acquire the skills of rice spreading and grading before milling.
Before the introduction of rice milling in Omo, percentage of rice production was low compared to now. Several hectares of both developed and undeveloped lands are now being cropped as a result of introduction of the milling technology in Omo.
Cassava production has also improved in targeted zones. Cassava processing in Nigeria, however, is predominantly traditional. 70% of processing is done in small-scale centers in rural areas. Women peel harvested cassava, pound the cassava, and press the pulp to remove water. Garri processing is still a tedious process until the ATAPS project intervened with intermediate technology. The introduction of machines in every stage of cassava processing could speed up and sanitize the production of garri. 4 cassava processing sheds were built across the zones. The sheds are equipped with grating, pressing, sharing, and frying components to reduce the drudgery of processing cassava. In Umbu, Isiuzo, Enugu State, farmers are already benefiting from the newly installed cassava processor. The shed is managed by a group of business actors who charge token fees for members to process their peeled cassava.
Very liquid, which we call waste during garri processing. By the time you'll be squeezing out the water from the grated cassava, that we now use it to process and get starch, which most of the force units like army, police are using. So they are doing it. Some of them are doing it now. So we have taught them this, and it has not only added value to the produce, it has also increased sustainably their income.
Women stand the chance of benefiting from the value addition to the various crops cultivated. The project adopted a gender strategy that trained women to benefit from the value chains in rice and sorghum.
Women are very relevant there in all the crops. The women are relevant in processing of rice, processing of sorghum, even further, in making delicacies, products and byproducts of those commodities. The women are directly involved. So they are really involved in our own project, and they occupy also a very good market share in that project implementation.
When ATAPS built the Young Taba produce market in Bunkure, Kano State, a whole activity in rice processing sprang up. Among the beneficiaries is a group of women who are engaged in making confectionaries and noodles from rice, sorghum, and wheat.
With this little money they get, they help a lot. They can now help their children, even sponsor most of their children to school because of the money they get from these confectionaries we talk.
In Dutse, Jigawa State, selected women are trained on how to prepare supplementary infant foods for breastfeeding mothers. Using sorghum, corn millet, palm oil, and other ingredients that are rich in vitamins, the trainees are able to prepare 6 classes of food suitable for child nutrition. The trainees are expected to propagate these formulas to the rural mothers. Capacity building is indispensable to the multi-sectoral approach to agriculture and poverty eradication in rural areas. Access to science and technology is vital in improving the nutritional value of crops, in reducing farm waste, and increasing the productivity of small-scale farmers. The stover machine is currently being promoted by the project for crushing farm residues. Corn stalk and legumes are blended to make livestock feed.
How many of you keep animals? Or you keep? No, it depends now on the type of animal you keep. And after this training, we'll give you materials. You can feed your animals with this. But just the way I told you initially, it will not just be solely fed with this. There are some animals that may not want to test it. You understand? But you have to put some portions of legumes, cotton seed, you blend them together so that you feed your animals with it. Just the way you farm your crops, you eat out of it and you sell out. For those who keep their animals, you can also feed your animals with it and sell the other portion out so that you can make money for yourself.
In Jigawa State, facilitators in a step-down training attempted to convince agro-traders and small-scale farmers on the business possibilities of the stover machine. They informed them that the nutritious animal feeds that the machine can blend could be packaged in bags and labeled like any agricultural product. They also explained to them the machine's potential for resolving the persistent conflict between farmers and herders in Nigeria. The stover machine has to be demonstrated in rural areas. Here in Kebbi State, corn stalk residues and legumes are blended into livestock cereals in front of farmers and rearers, the potential beneficiaries of the product. As more implements are required to boost agricultural productivity, ATAPS turned to enterprising fabricators for the potential technologies of rural agriculture. Several fabricators were trained across the zones and technology incubation centers patronized by the project. At centers like Metal Focus Technologies in Kano, youth are involved in fabricating planters, threshers, crushers, and drying machines.
We sell different types of machines. In thresher, we sell almost 15 pieces. Storeback crushers, 8 pieces. We have feed mills. We sell 3 sets, and then dryers, pipes, pieces, 2 tons, 2 numbers, and 1 ton, 3 numbers in the year 2020.
Usman Saleh is an ambitious fabricator who's developing a rice planter. Still at the design stage, he hopes Nigeria will soon stop importing farm implements.
So as you can see, I designed it from scratch after seeing how difficult our farmers is facing when transplanting rice. So I decided to come up with a machine that can ease their work.
Although the introduction of intermediate technology and high-yielding crops may improve agricultural production, the availability of water remains a central factor in Nigeria. Irregular rainfall and desert encroachment could hamper agricultural schemes. The utilization of surface water for irrigation remains the most viable option for ensuring a year-round farming in Nigeria. ATAPS has already undertaken the rehabilitation of a pumping station and irrigation canals at Ifite-Ogwari in Anambra State. When completed, the station will supply water to lower Anambra rice farmers. The Agufa irrigation scheme in Jigawa State, another ATAPS project, will utilize a reservoir on River Hadejia. The main canal will host a reservoir that will supply water to over 2 kilometers of secondary canals. Using surface irrigation by gravity, the project will irrigate 300 hectares of farmlands when completed. The scheme, which will be solar-powered, will ensure an all-year-round cultivation of rice, wheat, maize, and vegetables.
This is nothing but to ensure year-round cultivation of these commodity crops, especially rice, so that at the end of the day, the rural urban migration will be checked. Our youth will have something doing, and we will have food in the country. We ensure food security and also income generation as well as employment. We are rehabilitating and construction of dams in Kano State. We take like Jarmambaka, Bunkure irrigation scheme. We have taken on Bagwe irrigation scheme, and in Kano-Jigawa we have taken on Sakwa irrigation scheme, Miga Akuba irrigation scheme, and Kalwe, which is a brand new irrigation scheme to be constructed. In total, we have about 2,417 hectares to be developed.
In addition to intensifying agricultural practices, the holistic approach aims to complement agricultural production with social and economic infrastructure.
You know, in addressing the issues of rural development, it has to be all-encompassing. In addition to the requirement of the food security you are going to address, you have to see also to the health welfare aspect of the community, because they need to be healthy to produce food for their own communities and for contributing to the food basket of the nation. So that is why we are implementing the construction and also equipping these health centers. And then there is also the provision of schools. Their children need to go to school. Where need be, you have to provide schools there for their children to go to school, so that you will make the community literate, for obvious reasons.
Social services like healthcare, clean water supply, and primary education are instituted to help improve rural existence. In Mungorota, Niger State, a motorized solar-powered borehole supplies water to a clinic and the village dwellers who scramble to collect water at programmed hours every day. In some communities like Gidantambari in Sokoto State, a hand pump provides a clean source of water for its only primary school and the inhabitants of Tambari. According to the chief of the village, no borehole existed before the arrival of ATASP.
Ba inda ka samu ruwa irin wurin hande fon din nan. Su mutanen garin sun sani, ni na sani kuma Allah ya sani.
In addition to water supply, ATASP has built 28 classroom blocks across the zones. The new classrooms have replaced dilapidated ones in certain schools and have expanded class accommodation in some. Apart from primary education, the project intervened in another key aspect of rural life, the provision of health centers. In our Riki community in Jigawa State, the health department couldn't wait for equipment to move out of an old congested clinic. In a spacious new ATASP Health Center, the community was delighted to buy beds and equipment for the female and male wards.
Before we have a small setting of health facility, it has only 2 rooms, only OPD and DRF store, where we are selling drugs. But for now, this facility is bigger than that one. Even the community will appreciate the follow of our client increase. Before, in a month, seeing at least not more than 50 to 70. But for now, we are seeing at least about 400 patients.
Constructing access and feeder roads is another top ATASP strategy. Lack of access and feeder roads is a main factor that leads to poverty trap and isolation in rural areas. The project is aware that without access roads, rural dwellers are cut off from essential developments, produce markets, and vital sources of their subsistence. Over 400 kilometers of roads are constructed across the zones. The Yelwa Doka community in Kano State was so happy with a road project that they volunteered to demolish parts of their houses to allow a road to pass through. ATASP has shown the essence of counterpart-funded projects in aligning with the federal government economic and agricultural transformation agenda. The project has shown that agriculture can be used as the basis for economic diversification, food security, and job creation. The ATASP holistic approach has placed agriculture as the engine of inclusive growth. The project has increased employment among youth and women, added value to crops, and has improved infrastructure and commerce in the 4 targeted zones.